All right, there we go. So this week we're going to start off. I have the point of emphasis PowerPoint that I got from IHSA just last night. So we're going to go over some of that stuff, kind of what's new with baseball, high school baseball this year. We won't go too in depth on that because you get to watch the rules video as well. But let's kind of cover some of the stuff. There's some minor changes, nothing real a big, real big impact on what's going on. Besides, I mean, the one I guess bigger impact is they can use electronic devices to talk to catchers now. So you'll see, I'm sure you will see that in your games. I'm sure they have those devices already going. Hopefully that will actually speed up some things. As long as they work right, we should technology should actually help a little bit. I'm gonna apologize. I'm fighting off a cold, so my voice might struggle tonight. So just as a warning, as before we get started. So um, just some announcements. I put in the email today. We're not having a Belvedere clinic. We're not able to line up dates with the school. A couple of the dates that we were trying to use, they already had something booked, and we weren't able to use the school, and it just didn't happen this year. We apologize for that, and that's something we'll look at bringing back again next year, but just didn't work out this year. Softball guys. I was the last one to know that we're having a softball clinic at Wheaton. So we are going to have that. So I think it's David Taylor is the clinician. Somebody can correct me in the chat if that's not his name, but I emailed with him a little bit today, and he will be running a uh, softball clinic in conjunction with our baseball clinic in Wheaton on March 2nd. Thank you to everybody that points out every single mistake I make in my emails. I wouldn't know what to do without that. The first email I sent the first week, I put the wrong nights for these classes, and I don't know. I looked through that and proofread it 12 times, and I still put the wrong date for our biggest clinic. So this week was all correct. I didn't get any corrections from the grammar police or anything, so we should be good to go. Registration is on that email, and go ahead and get signed up. The promo code, if you remember, is FVB 2024. That'll give you free registration. So you don't have to pay for the clinic, even though you're a member like Jeff Linforth did this year. So our format here will be, kind of topic of the week a little bit, and just, topic of the week this week will be point of emphasis, but we're going to kind of try to keep a theme to the discussion, and then we're going to, the best way for me, me as an umpire is to see plays and try to, get a ruling on that. So that we're going to see a lot of videos. I've been trying to collect throughout the year that would be good for trainings like this. So I think we got 5 or 4 queued up for this week, which should have some pretty good discussion down there. These trainings, if you missed one of them, I'm getting better at going to try to be better at recording them, and then they will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of older sessions like we used to do in Crystal Lake on there, and and we also have some of these sessions I believe on there as well. I'm going to try to go through everything I got and upload it there. Now that'll be your one-stop shop for any of our training videos. We'll try to get as much up there as we can, and that's where you'll find these videos week to week, instead of sending, because we're putting them in Google Docs and sending links, and then you don't see that, you don't get the email, or you lose the email. I think just putting it on YouTube will make life easier for everybody. So that link to the YouTube channel is there. Otherwise, just search for my email, amccormick99@gmail, and you'll see my Facebook channel pop up, and there'll be a playlist with FEB videos that you can access. Any questions on anything before we get started? We can kind of do a little Q&A if anybody's got any pressing questions. Otherwise, we can jump right into the point of emphasis slide. our slideshow. All right. Let's see. I don't remember how to use this. Oh, there it is. All right, everybody see the slideshow? All right. So this is the rules presentation for the state. So you'll see these same slideshows as you go, the slides as you go through the rules video once that is loaded into the IHSA site. But we'll kind of do just a quicker version of this to kind of explain a little bit better than to somebody reading it to you. So the biggest so there's a new section in the rule book 161 which talks about wristbands, and it talks about the electronic communication devices. So although they can wear the communication things, they have to wear it on their forearm. The play sheets and stuff have to be on their forearm. If the pitcher has to have it on his non-throwing hand. And then this talks about electronic communication too. So a pitcher can wear it on their non-throwing arm, but it can't be white, gray, or distracting. They're most of the time they're black, from what I've seen. So just be aware that those, I think last year was when we had the rulings on they couldn't wear it on their belts and all this stuff. So it's got to be on their forearm. It's kind of like at least back when I worked football, all the wristbands had to be between the wrist and the elbow. And that's kind of where they're going with this as well. That's just another picture of it and where they can place them. All right, so if they wear it inappropriately, you'd give a team warning. That should do it. I mean, if you have to, you can go down the route of ejecting the offender and the head coach, but it shouldn't get to that point. There are, use your game management tools before you get to even the first offense, giving a warning, like just remind them if you see it and try to handle it low key a little bit first. And if, they force you, back in the old jewelry days, right? If you see something, just make them take it off versus, making a scene about it. That's kind of just a game management thing, but, don't have to, this is not a, like, hammer them all the time. This is just a, hey, the first time it happens, just, hey, coach, you got to get things right. So this is the 162 is where it talks about the electronic communication devices. So ultimately, I think there's more slides on this, but any coach may talk to the catcher only. It's a one-way communication device, so it's from the coach to the catcher. The catcher cannot talk back through the device. It's just there to call pitches. And so that's all you got. So the catcher will have some kind of earpiece in, and the coach from the dugout will be able to communicate and call pitches that way instead of yelling out numbers or giving signs or anything. They do make an emphasis on this that the coach needs to be in the dugout for this. You can only be the catcher. It cannot be any other defensive player. And it can only be when the team is on defense. They make a deal about the coach having to be in the dugout when he's using it. I mean, it should, all the excuses for, I've ever heard from pitching coaches about calling pitches is that they're too far away or they're behind the fence. The kid can't hear them or see them. All that goes away with this. So this should help with keeping guys in the dugout, keeping coaches in the dugout. And then again, if they use, things that are not prescribed by the rules, then you warn, then eject. You'll probably have issues with, these things not working. Just, Major League Baseball's having the issues, and college has some issues too. But when it works right, it should move our games along a little bit quicker. So one kind of, it's a small change. They only removed one word um, from the rule on 10.2.3H. They took the word spectators out. So that clause in the rule gives you the ability to forfeit a game for certain infractions. And it used to be anybody, right? It could have been spectators, coaches, players, or team bench personnel. They took that part out. They're really the point of the emphasis on here is that, which we've always talked about and was kind of was in the rules but not really specifically stated in there, was that you have authority inside the fence on the field. You don't have authority outside the fence. So no matter how crazy the parents get, um, you your job is to tell, if there's an AD there or there's some other supervisor, or the head coach is like, this parent's got to go. Um, those don't know, I was volunteered into being the president of a hockey club this year, a high school hockey team. And trust me, there's parents that are crazy. I've spent more time dealing with the crazy hockey parents this year than I could ever imagined. So um, those kids, a lot of hockey players play baseball, and there's a lot of the all the rumors and all the everything about um, parents ruining sports and parents being crazy has all been confirmed in my mind just in the last like 4 5 months that I've been running this 2 team hockey association. Um so what you do, like, the parents are crazy, right? They're doing something stupid, give let the coach know or let the AD know, let somebody else know to handle it for them. Nothing you can do as an official um will settle down crazy, right? So you try to reason with them, or you try to be firm with them, and you try to do something to get rid of them. All it's gonna do is make it matter, right? A parent that is screaming at officials and screaming at players from the other team or anything from the stands has lost touch with the reality at some point of what is acceptable and what's going on in here. So um, this part about not dealing with spectators has been cemented in my head. Just my experience the last few months. So um, I apologize too. Can we have somebody, Jeff Linforth? Can you watch the chat for me? For some reason, I cannot get that to pull up. If there's something in the chat, please let me know. Otherwise, unmute your mic and say something. So
nothing's in there.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. So point of emphasis for the year is malicious contact. Um, for those of you that, if you are on TikTok or watch Instagram Reels or any of that stuff, there's a TikTok page called Umpire Hate, I think is what it's called, and they'll do they'll show a video and be like, this umpire blew this call, right? And you'll see it and be like, no, he didn't. He did everything right, right? And a lot of them are kids, people just blowing up a catcher, right? They come in, shoulder to the chest and blow the kid up, right? And you go to the comments and it should be simple, like, yeah, that's most of the contact, he's ejected, right? There's not. So the first 15 comments are, the catcher shouldn't have been there, right? You know, the kids are soft and all these things. And then the 16th comment is from somebody who knows the rules and says it should be an ejection. And then there's 35 comments telling them how they're stupid and they don't know what they're talking about. So those comment sections are real people, or most of them are real people, and they're coming to baseball games and they're in the stands and they're coaching travel baseball teams or helping out at least. So it just cements again that they don't understand the rules of the rulings around it. And put that on top of that, they're crazy enough to yell at somebody that the grandma on the top row doesn't know the rule, but she's not screaming at you. Um, you get those two things together: misinformation on what the ruling is and the craziness will cause a bunch of problems. So if you want some entertainment, go to TikTok or Instagram and look for umpire hate and have have a heyday with people that don't know what the hell they're talking about. So their point of emphasis is malicious contacts, right? Um, I know they talk when they ever talk about malicious contact. This has been a point of emphasis at some point before, and they show a tag, right? Um, I personally have a hard time feeling like where this tag is. In this situation, they put the picture in. You guys can't see me pointing at my screen, but um, this play, it's a bad throw. Look to me, it's a bad throw at first, and they're trying to tag. It's gonna be really hard to get a malicious contact on this. Where I see like on a tag play where there might be, something that's malicious contact is, the kids dive. There's a throw at first, the kid dives in, he's safe by a lot, and all of a sudden the tag comes down and hits him in the back of the head, or just kind of just shady stuff that something. So that's on a normal tag. If it's part of the play and everything's moving, it's going to be real hard to get a malicious contact on that. So like I see this picture on here and it scares me that we're going to see, oh, he tagged him hard. A hard tag and a malicious tag are two different things, right? Um, so it's excessive force and or appears to be an intent to injure. So that's like on the pickoff at first, and they bang the kid in the back of the head with the helmet. That's where you could probably get something there, right? That's the line of things that are going to happen. Regular plays, it's going to be in the action of the game, it's going to be harder to get something like that as a malicious contact. Um, the slide plays, this one, so the force play slide rule. I actually had this. Um, where was I at? I don't remember. It was a high school game, and so it was with the force play slide rule, play at second, and it was the issue I had was kind of a coverage issue, right? So on that force play slide rule. So anyway, so we had a double. They were trying to turn double play, slow developing, and throw goes to the second baseman standing on the base, and he doesn't throw the first, but the kid slides in and um, hits the second baseman in the chest with his cleats, and it cuts him, and he's bleeding, right? So I was working the plate, my partner's on the bases, right? So that in my mind I would use the story for that type of thing, like where like whose coverage is it, who makes the call. But it is something to look for, right? Because we're looking for on the force play, we're looking for the direction of the slide, we're looking for him sticking an arm out, or up in the air, or sticking a leg out, those kind of things. But this, you be on the lookout for this too. So if that cleat makes contact above the knee, is kind of the guidance there. That's gonna be where you could get it on here. It's hard to see, right? Because it's hard to see this anyway, because in a two-man system, because you don't have the distance there, and it's sometimes depending on where the ball goes, the angle's not the right. But I'd say I did have this happen once, and it turned into kind of a cluster, because on that play, me as a plate umpire, my thought was I only have coverage on this play once the throw happens, right? So now we don't have a throw happen. So I'm not gonna, so that is but what I felt it was my partner's call. So I'm not gonna jump over his shoulder to make the call, right? And it turned into a mess. And it was interesting. Um yeah, so yeah, you kind of look at this, but there's a chance for that slide in the second being malicious, besides sliding high in a shoulder, or forearm into somebody. But you can, keep an eye out on this part of it, especially if they put it in the rules video, then people see it and get ideas of what they're going to do this year. So there are plays where hard contact isn't malicious, right? The play from the other slide where you have a tag play at first base, right? Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, but they run into each other, right? So there are times where there's contact without malicious contact. You're kind of looking for the intent, like excessive force or kind of intent to injure are kind of where you're looking on that. There's times that the worst collisions I've seen are not weren't malicious contact, but you do have there's some you got to kind of look at it, and that's where the timing happens too. Like, is he try? What is that guy trying to do, and what's the intent of what he's trying to do? Is it to make a play, or is it to try to hurt somebody? So, all right, everybody's favorite topic. So so we had a hockey player this year, um, that got suspended because the referee gave him a game misconduct for um, like he just he didn't swear at the ref, but he dropped a couple f-bombs on the way to the penalty box and got kicked out. He was swearing in general, but not he didn't tell the ref to fuck off or anything, but he did say the f word a couple times, and that referee kicked him out. Right. Um, everybody's got a everybody's got a threshold on what they consider over the top for profanity. Right. You have to that line should be, I don't know how to say it. It's like, for me, like, my threshold is pretty high, right? Um, and there's other people where their threshold is kind of low, right? So what you got to do is kind of balance where you're drawing your line on the profanity, right? Every kid on a baseball team that grounds out to first, gets past the base, will at one point this season will drop an f bomb. It has nothing to do with you making the call or anything else. It's just that he's mad at himself, right? I have a 16-year-old son, and he swears all the time. He tries to hide it around me, but I know he does, and we're never going to get all the profanity out of high school baseball. But there are times where there are spots where you have to address it, right? If it's it's an fu, or it's directed directly at you or another participant, right? That's where my line is, right? If it's just swearing in general and it's not directed or meant to demean or any of that stuff, a, a, a participant in the game, I let it go. But if it's directed at somebody, that's when you have to address it. That's my recommendation for you. Um, just working in a school as well. Like, I work in Hiawatha School District, right? Little podunk town, real small school districts, and um, there's still, you walk down the hallway and you hear it, right? You hear middle school kids, you hear high school kids, and it's kind of it's for no judgment on it, but it's part of their just how they talk, right? So kind of draw that. You have to make this decision on your own and where your threshold is. I would just be careful at setting that bar too low, because it's part of the culture of, I mean, I hate to say, like, swearing is part of the culture of the game, but it's accepted part of the game for the participants that are, the players and the coaches and everybody. And then you're going in there and you have to set the tone of what is acceptable and is not. I would, unless somebody tells you to f off, or like just directly straight at you, I would handle this with a warning if you want to go there first. But if it is egregious, then address it. And I know this topic, nope, not everybody's going to agree with me, and I don't feel like my opinion on this is way above everybody else's, but this has worked for me over the years. There's no rule change with this. This is just pointing it back out that it's happening. So just be aware that this is in the point of emphasis, so it might bring it to more of your attention, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to address it any differently than you have in the past. I do see. I think I'll be able to get to the chat here.
Lee Mauer's got a question.
Yep. Yeah, let the coach. Yeah, it's easier that way. If a teenage kid, tells me to F off, like he's gonna get ejected, right? But if he says what the F, where the F was that, right, on a pitch, or that, like, that doesn't that's gonna get a warning for me to, hey, knock it off type thing, right? But not a you're out of here. I still remember I coached basketball back in the day, and one of my kids um kind of got undercut, so he got a rebound, and his feet got taken out from him, and he fell to the ground, and they called a travel on him, and he said, "God damn it," to himself, but the referee heard it and teed him up. It's like, wow, that was like the extreme. Like, kid just fell on his back, straight on his back on the floor, and said that and got teed up, and that started my conversation with that referee. It's like, okay, like, is that, like, where's the line, right? Like, so I know what to tell my guys, because even back then it was 2005, 2006, like the same type of thing was going on. So set that bar, you know, set the bar somewhere, right? But don't set it too low, because I think if you set it too low, it's going to get you in trouble, and it's going to cause issues for you. I would say not get you in trouble necessarily, but it's going to cause issues for you. So here it goes. You have verbal warnings for minor offenses, written warning, with restriction of the coach, and I would just try to do a hey, knock it off type thing before you give the official verbal warning, official written warning. Like, there's some intermediary steps you can do in there, and then the major offenses is when it's directed at you. All right, so pace of play. There's quite a few things on this. I think this is NFHS's way to one last year to ward off the calls for a pitch clock, and not wanting to put the expense in, have schools put the expense in for a pitch clock. So it's, that's kind of the buzz topic, is the NCAA implemented a pitch clock, official pitch clock last year, I believe it was last year. And then MLB obviously made the best rules change in the history of Major League Baseball, and then put a pitch clock in for MLB. And this is just NFHS's response to that. There's always been, since the 70s, there's been a 20-second pitch clock for, I think, does it say, with I think it's with nobody on. You're supposed to pitch within 20 seconds, but they also, like, even in this point of emphasis, this rule is only meant to be enforced when other preventive umpire measures fail to be achieved. So you have a 20-second pitch clock on the books, and they're telling you not to enforce it. So it's kind of just what we've always preached, like, keep the game moving, remind them to get going, like if they're going slow, but don't take a stopwatch out there. Like, I don't think you need, or if you do take a stopwatch, it's just for tracking between innings or something. Just kind of keep an idea on there. There's no hard guideline now, and hard enforcement wanted by any of the governing bodies from NFHS on this stuff. They just want to make you aware that this is kind of the coming down the pipeline type thing. But I'd be surprised, kind of equate it to other sports, that baseball, NFHS baseball, is going to approve a visible pitch clock for baseball before they put in shot clocks for basketball. That's my prediction. So, and then the other rule is that it's a minute and 20 seconds between innings. between half innings is there as well. That's just a, kind of a guide, right? The rhythm is going or not, on those things. And right now we don't have a mechanism to really, really get it going because they don't want you timing it. They just want you to be aware of the time it's taking, which I think all of us are. I mean, the culture is, we get paid a stipend, right? We want to get through. We want good games and quick games, and you do play a part in there, but you are it's almost like a cheerleader to get people going, right? Like, hey, let's go, keep them moving. If they're when the pitcher's ready, you're beckoning the batter, you're letting the batter know when there's two pitches left. Like there's a lot of things you can go make sure you're counting warm up pitches. A lot of things you can do. It should just be part of your routine between innings. That will help this and without having the punitive measures that come along with having a pitch clock. But I think eventually it'll hit at high school baseball, but I think I would guess we're still 5 years away before something actually happens. But that's just my guess. This is another pace of play thing. These are all the rules of why a batter can leave the batter's box. So it's swinging a pitch, force the pitch drives them out, drag bunt, pitcher catcher fakes attempt at a base, pitcher leaves a dirt area of the mound, member of either team requests the granted time, catcher leaves the catcher's box, catcher does not catch a pitch ball, right? So these things are the only reasons that why a batter could leave the batter's box, right? So this is a very much a reminder, right? So kid steps in, takes their first pitch, for a ball, and he's both feet out, adjusts his gloves, looks at the coach and say, hey, 1 foot in the box, right? And then I don't know if you can see on the camera, wave my arms like, hey, back in the box, so they know what I'm saying to him, right? And most of the time is, oh, sorry, blue, and then they're back in, right? Just remind. You can call a strike when they step out. I would use that only as a last resort. Most of the time you can solve this by, hey, stay in the box. I need 1 foot in the box. They know that, and they just need the reminders to get them to do it. But there's prescribed where you can call a strike if they do continuously do this, but make sure that there's some kind of warning given before you do that. So all the stuff that we just talked about. So yeah, so you can see here too with the the delay tactics, right? Pitcher struggling, and you just you see the coach send some kid to the send a kid to the bullpen, and then all of a sudden we're waiting, and then all of a sudden the assistant coach goes out there for a mound visit, or a coach goes out there for a mound visit, right? You can break those up pretty quickly when they do happen. Is to just understand what's going on with the game, and they're allowed to have their conference, but you don't let them just sit there and talk and try to delay the game. When you break up this, I think is good discussion on how you break up a conference as well. For me, I look for the coach in the group, right? I walk down and around the opposite side, and I stand in the huddle facing the coach, right? That way, I don't interrupt them. I don't say anything, but my presence there tells them, hey, it's time to go, right? If they don't stop talking, it's like, hey, all right, guys, time's up, we got to go, and then then move on, right? But most of them will understand that. Don't come up behind a coach. Don't stand next to him. Come around so he sees you, right? Because he could be mad too, right? I've had that a couple times where a coach called time to yell at me, right? That they're gonna their whole point out there is to have that interaction, right? And you want that interaction to be face to face and not, you walk up behind him and then he turns and starts, he's in your face yelling. So you just get again, walk wherever he's standing, just walk to the opposite side of the huddle and just, make eye contact with him and let him know you're there. And then, usually usually by the time you get there, it's gone. But if they're still out there, that'll let them know that it's time to go. And if you see that they're just trying to slow things down to get a picture ready, go out there a little quicker. Like, don't give as much time because they're not. That's the only reason they're out there, is to strategize on that. So. All right, that is it. Besides all the commercials on here. So, any questions on what we just talked about? There's not a lot of hard hitting stuff there, but kind of what's, if you get your mind into what the high school is asking for and what we're going to see this year and what the video, so kind of a preview for you. All right, so quiet crowd tonight. So now we're going to jump into some videos. I think I actually have 4 YouTube videos, and I have a couple. I have a couple from Facebook as well. I don't know how well those are going to show on here, but we'll go through these. We'll watch it a couple times through. I'm going to hold on here. I'll put it in the chat in case any of you are having. I can find the chat again. Put them in the chat so you can follow along on your own device in case this isn't coming through the share here. All right, we'll watch it a couple times and then go ahead and give your ruling in the chat. And then we can discuss that, or if you want to unmute your microphone, and we can talk about it as well. So this first one is, it's actually a rules difference between pro baseball and high school baseball, but it is a rule change, and something that whenever there's a rule that's different between the rule sets, especially if it's a rule change in OBR or pro rules, that they'll translate that stuff down to what we do, and what we do is can be different on here. So we'll watch this one through. We'll get a slower motion view of this. Everybody catch that? I think this is the better. The initial call is a foul ball, I believe. But if you see the ball hits the bat, it's a knob of the bat, and it hits a catcher in the nuts. What do we have in a high school game on this play? What is the ruling? So it hits him there, and he grabs it and he holds on to it. What do we got? I'm gonna make one of you answer this question. So who wants to be the tribute? We got one foul ball. We got foul ball, or do we have an out? Who's got an out on this play in high school? All right, so we got mostly foul balls. All right, we'll give everybody a second here. All right, so the correct ruling in high school, high school rules would be foul ball. So I guess the question, if it was a strike 2, if there's 2 strikes already, what would be the call? And there was 2 strikes in this play. So this is a rules difference that has only been a rules difference for 3 seasons, right? So the rule in all of baseball up until 2020 was that maybe 2019 or not 2020, all of baseball was, if it hits you, if it hits the bat it goes sharp and direct to the catcher's hands. Like Ken said in the chat, goes sharp and direct to the catcher's hands, and the catcher secures it or catches the ball. Then it is a foul tip, right? So if it's strike three, it's if there's two strikes, then it'd be strike three. So before, even with high school now, right? If this same play happens, right? Except for after it hits the bat, get back to watching again. So if here it hits the bat, hits the catcher's glove, then hits the catcher in the nuts, and he secures it, right? We have an out, right? It's a strike. If it's two strikes, then it would have been strike three, right? That's still the case in high school. In OBR, it was the case before 2019. The same thing, the same ruling. Pro rules, they changed, the MLB changed this as a rule change. It was kind of to me, it was a subtle rule. I completely missed it until I saw it last year, right? So now the rule in MLB is if it goes sharp, if it goes from the bat to the catcher and he secures it, then it's a strike. It's a strike. It's a foul tip, and it would be strike three in this situation. So that's something that you might get a question on this, like, oh, he caught it, but it's like, oh, it didn't go to his hands, right? So even on this one in high school, if that goes off the bat and then hits the back of his hand, right, and then he catches it, then you have a strike, or it would be a foul tip instead of a foul ball. So, but no, that's something that's new and something you might run when this stuff changes, and then a play like this happens and people see it, then they think it applies to all of baseball, not just one level. So correct ruling on this would be a foul ball for high school, but it would be a foul tip, which makes in this situation a strikeout. And this was the first career strikeout for the pitcher as well, so a memorable one at least. All right, any questions on that one? You guys are a quiet bunch tonight. All right, next video. This is a base path question video. This is everybody's favorite. Let's get to the actual play. All right, everybody's initial take on that. What do you got? We'll play one more time here. Oop, let me get a full screen here. Yeah, don't worry about the play at first. Just worry about the tag attempt. All right, so I got a bunch of out of the base path. Okay. So somebody explain, you can if somebody wants to unmute or put it in the chat, what are the determining factors you're going to take if you're officiating this game to say if he's out of the base path or not? Like what are the cues you're looking for? If a coach comes out to you, what are you going to say to him on this play to explain to him on why you're making that ruling, right? So I think in my head there are one, two.
Hey, Alan, it's Dale. He took a path closer to the inside of the infield, so he did not deviate more than 3 feet from his already established path. So I have him safe.
Okay. So I guess so what is the criteria, right? So you said, we've seen a couple times in chat and what you said, Dale, was 3 feet, right? 3 feet from when? Like it's a 3 feet direct path to the base, right? So when does that start? When does that restriction start?
It's at the time of the attempted tag.
Correct. Yeah. So on this play, right? So as you're watching these plays develop, right? You got to say when does this become a tag attempt? At what point? Is it then? Is it before? Is it when he fields the ball? Like when are you going to say on this? Like when does that tag attempt start?
I think for me, it's when the fielder kind of puts his foot in the ground to move towards the runner with the ball in hand. As soon as he's making that move in, then that's an attempt to tag for me.
Okay. So I'm going to try to pause it right on the time. So not when he fields it, right? So like now, right? Okay, so now we can I think we got another angle. Let's get the other angle. So we're gonna just like instant replay, we got to piece it together here. Right? So right now, okay, it's got 1 foot. You know, it's hard to tell from this, but like he's right about here. His left foot's probably going to come down right next to the grass, right? But he's going to step. So, you know, as long as whatever body parts within that 3 feet, we're okay. So based on that, right? So he goes, you know, if he's right here to right here, is that 3 feet or not? I mean, it's hard to tell, but you got to decide from where he started, when you determine what that call is to where he ends up, is he on the base path or not, right? So, coach, this play comes to you. The coach, the defensive, you call it. Let's say you call it where he's okay. He's not out of his base path, and you called R1 safe at second. What are you going to say to the coach to explain that when he thinks you're crazy for making that call? How are you going to explain that to him? Somebody unmute on this one and kind of explain what you would say to the coach in this situation. Don't be afraid. Jeff,
All right, I'll go. I think it's right along the lines of what Phil said. You know, I have the second baseman establishing, or the shortstop, the fielder establishing, attempting that tag at a point where that runner's just off the grass, giving him 3 feet to the inside of the grass or so, and he's still making a direct tag slide at the back. At that point, I don't have him leaving his established line.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
Anybody else? How would you say this? Jeff Lidforth, how would you handle this one? How would you explain this one?
He's out. He is out of his line. Everybody in the ballpark sees him. And I'm not going to come up with an argument for how he's safe.
So
I don't have him
just
safe.
not on this one, but like you have a play where the coach thinks he was out of the base path and you don't have it out of the base path. How are you going to explain that to the coach?
Coach, in my judgment, I've got him within his legal 3 foot line to his base path. And it's going to be a short conversation. In this example right here, I don't agree with it at all. He ends up on the infield grass. Everybody in the ballpark sees that.
So that's my follow-up, right? The coach in your first one, the coach goes, well, he was on the grass. How can he not leave his base path if he's on the grass? What's the response to that?
Well, if you're going to take that line, if you're going to call him safe, then you're going to say, Coach, he was right along the grass on his initial approach to second. So 2 or a foot and a half into the grass is legal. But that's the shitty end of the stick in this play call.
I'm just we're just talking through like what if this play happens, right? Like what if he's running in the grass for some reason, right? And this play is so because they're gonna you the counterpoints the coaches are gonna give you are the simple things like, well, he's on the grass, he's got to be on the base path, right? And you say nope, you say, coach, the batter establishes his base path as soon as your fielder attempts to tag. So wherever he's at that point, then he's got 3 feet in either direction, right? The grass has nothing to do with the call, right? It's the position of the batter at the time of the initial tag attempt, right? So things like that will help you go through. If you could use rules, wording from the rules itself, help a lot, right? If anything, you confuse them with the rules and helps them. Ultimately, you want that conversation to be as quick and painless as possible, right? If a coach does come out to you, right, take the time from when he starts coming towards you, right, to collect your thoughts, right? Don't meet him in the middle. Let him get to you, and be a good listener, right? Let him talk. Let him ask you a question, and then answer the questions he asks you.
Great. A great tool to have in your bag is to slowly say to that coach, if you're going to argue the rule, say, coach, by rule, and then state what you believe with proper verbiage is the rule. And when you use that line, coach, by rule, that will usually slow down the conversation considerably.
Yep.
Question to ask you, honestly, and this is solely because I literally just had this situation appear this past season. The 3 feet on each direction of the base path it starts basically on like the back end of the baseline of the baseline, correct? Like where does that baseline usually start? I guess is my question.
It has everything to do with the position of the runner when he's being tagged, right? So on a tag play like this, the runner establishes his base path. So I guess the like classic example of this is the skunk in the outfield play, right? Where a runner R1 takes his lead off out in right field, right? To confuse the defense, right? He's allowed to go all the way out in the outfield, right? And as soon as they make an attempt on him, he either has to run directly to second base or directly to first base, right? And he has 3 feet in a direct line to the base. So as soon as a tag attempt, like we were talking about on this, as soon as you say that there's a tag being attempted by the fielder, which is probably right about there, right? That fielder has 3 feet in either direction from where he's at to be legal, right? From that 3 feet from a direct line from him to the base he's going to. Right? The actual lines and everything don't matter unless we're talking about the running lane, which is another rule change for MLB this year. The running lane starts 45 feet from home plate, or the halfway point between home plate and first base, and then it is a 3-foot path that the runner must use as they're running to first if there's a play happening on them, right? The running lane has nothing to do with tag plays, though, right? It's only on a thrown ball, from the area behind the runner, from the catcher, pitcher, third baseman if he's in. So the actual lines on the field have nothing to do with tag plays and establishing base path. That makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, it's 3 feet. It's a step in the lean, right? Like it's hard. It's none of us have tape measures out there, but you could try to figure out what it is, and usually most of the time it's obvious, right? They're running way out and they're making it easy for you. It's the ones that are that are borderline. So, any other questions on this play? All right, we will jump to the next one. All right, so this play is you're looking, is there obstruction or interference? Okay, the interaction between the shortstop and R2 is where we're looking on this play. It's going to happen real quick here. And of course, maybe we get a better look here in a second. Here we go. All right, what do you got here? Is it obstruction, interference, or nothing? Run it through one time. Go ahead and start putting it in the chat. What do you got? There is contact. So if that helps your answer, there is contact between the shortstop and R2. All right, we're gonna have some people explain. Okay, so for those of you saying interference, how do you explain? So what do you, I guess, what do you need to get interference on this play? Like, so that the ball's hit up the middle, right? And what criteria do you need to be able to make an interference call on this play? If my question makes sense there. We do have contact, right? What other criteria do you need to be able to call for the runner to be able to interfere with the fielder's attempt to field the ball, the shortstop ability to field the ball?
Are we looking at interference on either player, or is it interference towards the runner?
Well, interference. So that there's a vocabulary lesson on this. Interference can only be by an offensive player, right? So the offense has interference, the defense obstructs. So that's an important for you, like a important vocabulary that you can use with the coaches, because coaches and players and fans, everything's interference, right? But to us, we're looking, obstruction is by the defense and interference is by the offense. So right now we're looking at was the runner at fault? Did the runner cause interference with the shortstop's ability to field the ball?
The fielders in the fielders in the runners lane of traffic.
Yep. Does that matter though? Like, I guess here, so I guess let me rephrase that. So the fielder is there, right? Can he be in the runner's path? What if he's attempting to field the ball? Right? I guess that's kind of a question we can answer too, right? Is the fielder who has the right to be in that spot, I guess, right? So when they make, maybe that's a better way to explain. So when the two players collide, who has the right to be in that spot based on where the ball is at on this one? So let's see. I don't know if I'm gonna explain this right.
In a normal depth.
Like he's even with the base path, right?
Yeah, he's even with the base pad. That's why I say it's obstruction on the fielder. Normally, you're not in that situation there.
So I would lean. So what was the call that was made on the field, right? Was obstruction. So these umpires, the crew, the second base umpire, right? Felt like the shortstop did not have an ability to field that ball. He was not protecting that fielder in the situation. So he does not have the right to be there, and the runner has the right to be there. So that contact with them was obstruction, right? Because of the obstruction, this runner scores, right? So once you call the obstruction on this, you protect the runner. The runner gets one base automatically in high school. He gets third, and then he can get anywhere. He can get more than that if you award the base to nullify the act of obstruction, right? So here, the third base umpire in this play calls the obstruction and sends that, protects that runner to home, awards him home because he would have got there if there wasn't contact, right? I think the piece that's missing on here to have interference is where that ball is at, like the fielder's ability to get there. So if you think he could have got there without the contact, right, then you got interference. With interference, the ball is dead immediately, right? And then you call that runner out, and everybody else advances if they're forced to advance. So
Show it again, Alan. Did the third base umpire signal this? Because the
Yes.
second base umpire is playing deep?
yes, third base umpire called the obstruction.
Let's see that.
I don't think you see him in the screen, but when they're awarding the bases, you see.
So no signal by the second base umpire. Here, maybe does he?
No. But you see it after this, you'll see that he awards. They're not going to show it on this one, but yeah, it's the third base umpire that makes the call.
So I guess in which case on a two-man crew, ideally, whoever's behind the plate would see that when you would let the play go through, and then when it's dead, you allow the obstruction, correct? Or do you call that right away and it's automatically dead?
So if you're calling obstruction, you verbalize the obstruction.
Does the play still go on, or is it
Yes.
automatically dead?
Yeah, it's a delayed dead ball. So you say that's obstruction, right? Nobody's going to hear you, but point and say that's obstruction. When the play ends, right? You call the play ends, everything action is done. Time, we had obstruction by the shortstop. Point at the runner, say you score and you're safe.
Home plate umpire actually signals to it if you see it.
Yeah, this would be more than likely be the plate umpire calling this call because of a hard hit ball like that. I think where are the runners at the start of the play? R2. Where's the bases loaded?
Second
So-
and third.
Yeah, so you'll be in B. But the hard hit ball like that, you get a better look at it. A lot of time, if you're in C, you're not gonna be able to see and turn around and see the whole play develop. So it'll be the plate umpire calling that. It's a shared call. If you see it, you can call it, but the plate umpire will have a better look at it. Be able to see it because he's seeing the whole thing.
So Alan, the runner that was tagged out at the plate, I think his last name was Hoskins by the Phillies. Did they rule him safe then and protect him?
They did, yes. So the question I think Brian asked, if he didn't touch the plate on this, I don't know if he does, but say he didn't touch the plate. He doesn't touch the plate. He would, if they appeal, they can call him out on that. If the obstruction was on the catcher and because the catcher obstructed, he wasn't able to touch the plate, then you wouldn't give that appeal because the obstruction caused him to miss the plate. But if kind of a crash play or whatever, but on this play, like he's still responsible for touching the plate. So if they do appeal, you can get him out.
You get obstruction between second and third. We're going to protect that runner to a minimum of third base.
Yes.
And now he's out by 40 feet at home plate. Does that influence your decision?
But you gotta look at the contact, right? How much did that slow him down? He's stumbling. Right there, he'd be at third base already, right? So ultimately, it's the speed of the runner, the arm of the fielder, all that stuff. So it's up. That's a judgment call where you protect him to, right? So,
I think it's also, sorry to jump in, but I think it's also worth noting, as somebody who knows that player pretty well, he was not running all that hard from third to home. I think once the obstruction call was made, it looks to me like Hoskins pulled up. I don't think he was actually trying for home plate.
Yep. And that plays into it, right? There's a play in the World Series. I think it was Miguel Tejada was obstructed between second and third, and they called the obstruction, and he rounded third and just like pretty much stopped, arms up in the air, just walking towards home. He would have scored easily if he would have kept running, but he didn't keep running. And the actions of the fielder or the runner after the obstruction have play into how you make the ruling too. So in that play, just look up Miguel Tejada World Series play or something like that. You should be able to find the clip. And he was called out because he stopped running. And so they thought because he stopped running, he wouldn't have made it home. He wasn't even attempting to advance anymore. So they actually called him out. So he got tagged and they called him out because they only protected him at third base. They will try to pull that up for next week and pull that one up. But yeah, the action. So if he slowed up, like all that plays into it, right? Just because you called obstruction doesn't mean it's an automatic award. The automatic award, I guess, in high school is he gets third base. His obstruction.
Actually, you bring up a good point because I actually saw this too as a baseball player because I was still playing ball last year. So what ended up happening was, one of our teammates was rounding third. He collided with the third baseman and he got the obstruction call, but as he rounded third, he took a few steps onward to home and then he went back to third base, and they still technically called him out because he technically advanced to home because he took those few steps. Is that the right call, or does he still have third?
So did they tag him? They tagged him going back into third. Is what you're saying?
Yes, he tagged him going back into third. Yes.
Yeah. So if that obstruction happened before third base, before he legally acquired third base, then and you're only going to award him third base, he's advancing past at his own peril. So yeah. So without seeing the play, they probably called obstruction on the third baseman, saying he's not going to score. And then if he goes beyond the base you protect him to, then he's at peril being put out. So once he rounds third, he's advanced past, so then he's at peril to go back if he gets tagged going back to the base.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on this one before we jump to the next video. All right. This is a batter interference call. Call or no call. Show replay. All right, so who's got interference? What is the so on this play there's 2 outs. So who would, if there's 2 outs, who is out? And if there's less than 2 outs, who is out? Actually, hold on, that does make sense. Same answer. Hold on, we'll get into this here. So let me collect my thoughts on that before we go. So what is the criteria? Like we got pretty unanimous here that the batter's out, that it is batter interference. Where's the play at? Sorry. Come on. So what's the criteria for this to be interference? What did the batter do wrong here to cause this interference call to be made? I guess what does the rule book say? What's the rule book say about batter interference and what triggers batter interference? They got 1 step out of the box in the catcher's lane. Does the batter have to step out of the box? So agree that if the batter steps out of the box into the catcher's lane, it definitely batter interference. Does the batter's box, is it a sanctuary? If the batter's in the box, can he still cause interference? Or is he safe there? So Edgar, are you saying, so are the no's, no, he can't interfere, or no, it's not a safe haven? I guess I kind of asked that both ways.
I mean, as long as he's inside his box, he can stand there and take a throw right back up his face if he has to. But I mean, he doesn't have to move out of that box. But right now, he just moved out of that box.
Okay, so like opposite this, so let's say it this way. Ball's in the dirt. It hits the catcher in the chest and goes behind the right. It's a left-handed batter. Goes behind the left-handed batter's box. Catcher picks up the ball, throws it, and hits the batter in the batter's box. Do we have batter interference on that?
You do not, in my opinion. I don't think you do.
Who else has thoughts on that?
I think as long as if I recall correctly, as long as he's not actively attempting to get into the way, if he's where he was in his stance and the catcher goes behind him, you don't just dematerialize. But as long as he's not actively attempting to move into the way, I think in that context he'd be okay.
Okay. So you're saying he does not need to try to move to get out of the way. Does that sum it up?
I would say, and I guess I'm gonna have backpedal here. I would say you can't expect him to make an unreasonable attempt.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. So normal run of the mill batter interference, right? So we're kind of getting to the weeds of, kind of the third world plays here. But so if the batter does something to interfere with the catcher's ability to throw or attempt to make a throw, to retire a runner, right? That's when you have batter interference, right? It could be so most of the time on run of the mill batter interference type calls, right? The batter being in the box, he's okay, right? He doesn't have to disappear like we said. But he can do things while he's in the batter's box to interfere, right? So we have a pitch, say it's on the inside corner, just inside, right? Batter is right on the batter's box line, and he leans his body right over the plate, but his feet are still in the box, so he's legally in the box, right? But he can still move to interfere with the catcher's ability to throw. So 95% of the time, the batter just being in the box, he's not going to be called for interference, right? Where you see on a play at second, it's spreads if he's hanging over the plate or in the pitches caught normally by the catcher, you're going to get batter interference. Like he's stepping across, he's stepping on the plate, he's in the way, right? But there is things like if he is in the box, there are things he could do to still interfere. He still has to make an act. If he's just standing there, he's okay most of the time, right? Where you're going to see, where you see the play more is a play at third base, where the left or right-handed batter is in the way on the steal at third. He's in the path, right? Just because it is, right? He's there, right? It can happen. So him standing there, if the ball's just caught then thrown, him standing in the batter's box, he's fine. Like he's not interfering just by being there. But if there's some kind of delay, the ball drops and gets away, and just being if he has time to move, he needs to make an attempt to move, right? To not interfere. So bang bang play, throw to third. Yeah, he's just there, right? But if there's something else ancillary or something else happening on the play, the batter is supposed to, his obligation to not interfere and get out, and just standing there can be interference. But there has to be something else with the play to make that happen. I had a play years ago where we had a left-handed batter. The catcher tries to make a play on the runner at first. We're at Marion Central, and catcher turns, throws, hits the batter in the helmet with his throw. It's a real bang bang. He caught it clean and through. Hits the ball. The ball hits him in the helmet and goes over the backstop. So that situation, I believe it was the Marion Central coach wanted interference on it. I did not have interference, right? So in that play, with the throw off the helmet and over the backstop, where do you put R1? And how, on a rating scale of 1 to 10, how happy will that coach be that wants interference, and now his runner, the other team's runner is, going to be 0. So it's 2 bases from the throw, which actually puts that runner on third, and that coach was not very happy with me on that. But he didn't do anything. He just stood there and took a ball to the helmet, and it went over. Marion Central's backstop is 20 feet tall, and it went up over the fence, and kind of shocked, and we put the runner on third. But again, like 9 run of the mill normal plays that don't have some other weird thing going on with it. The batter just standing there, he's fine. But if there's something else that adds to the play or causes the ball get away or something else happens, then he does need to make some kind of attempt to not interfere with the catcher.
Alan, can you clarify who's out with less than 1 out or less than 2 outs and with 2 outs again?
Yes. So what I was trying to get to, and I didn't get to right away. I think in the video we have 2 outs, right? So normally, as a rule of thumb, if whoever interferes is out, right? So in a batter interference situation, the batter is out almost all the time, right? But there's very few exceptions, right? Where I was trying to get at, and I didn't get at because my brain's still working to get on baseball shape here. If this was strike, so there's less than 2 outs, right? If there's less than 2 outs, and this was strike 3 on the batter, then you have the batter out and R2 out on this play. So the outs don't matter unless it was strike 3 on the pitch, right? So the penalized, you can't call the batter out twice, right? So he's already out for strike 3, and now you're calling, you got to get somebody else for the interference, right? So I guess the number of outs don't matter. It's if it's strike 3 or not that matters. So strike 3 on the pitch, you call a run. There's less than 2 outs. You call a runner out, the one that's being played on, and the batter's out for strike 3. The other exception is if there's batter interference on a play when a runner is trying to attempt to score from third base. In that situation, you call the runner out and the batter stays in if there's batter interference. That's the one exception on there.
With less than 2 outs, if there are less than
Correct.
2 outs.
Yeah. So really you're giving the bigger penalty, right? So if there's a runner stealing home and you have batter interference and there's 2 outs, the bigger penalty is to roll the lineup over, right? Or roll it, this batter's, the time at bat is over. If the runner's trying to score and there's less than 2 outs, then the bigger penalty is to take the runner off at third and leave the batter in box. So that's the justification for that exception is there's got to be a bigger penalty. Otherwise, the batter just interfere on purpose, right? If he knows this guy's going to be out, and then his runner's still on third and he sacrifices himself. So they're trying to take that advantage away by calling it that way. That's why there's an exception to that. So whatever runner, so Vince, whatever runner's being played on would be the one that's called out, not the one closest to home. So when there's interference on here, so the other exception that you got to on the enforcement of batter interference. So we'll take this play, right? So if there's less than 2 outs, say 1 out, you call the interference here, right? Batter interference is a delayed dead ball. If the initial throw by the catcher retires a runner, then you ignore the interference. So say this happens, there's batter interference, the throw goes to the shortstop, he tags that runner out, right? That runner's out and the interference is ignored, that batter stays in the box with the count that he's got.
Makes sense.
So it's a delayed dead ball on that, right? So really on that is, well, he must not really interfere if the throw retired the runner, right? So that's kind of the justification there is, it hurts more to call the runner out than the batter out in that situation. Now, if this throw goes out into the outfield and the circus comes to town and everybody starts running, you kill it, right? And nobody's going to hear you, right? Because they're all screaming and yelling. You come out big, hands up in the air, go out in the middle of the infield and kill everything, right? Then you send the runners back, call the batter out and move on, right? But that does happen, right? Pick off at first and the ball's all the way out on third base line and that runner's trying to score. Dude, and everybody and their brother is screaming. They don't hear you, don't see you, and they just keep running, and then you get to be the spoiler and tell everybody it doesn't. All that didn't matter, and you got to go back to first. So,
Got it.
Yeah, that will happen, right? No matter how loud you are, how big you come out, like nobody's watching you at that point, right? They're all watching the chaos in the outfield. So I think that was my last video. All right.
So in this video, with less than 2 outs, the runner goes back to second. He's not out.
Correct.
Okay.
The batter's out.
Hey, Alan, so at that play, if it's less than 2 outs and it's better interference, so but the guy is out a second, so you ignore the and the guy scores, is the coach has the right to wanted to choose?
No, so I think I heard so you have less than 2 out. So say it again. So explain. So we have this exact play, right? But the ball goes into the outfield.
Right.
So as soon as that ball goes in the outfield, you kill it. Right, the ball's dead. The rule states that if the initial throw does not retire a runner, then the play is dead, and you call the batter out.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's no second throw and get somebody out and then get up. None of that matters. That all is water on the bridge here. You just, if that throw doesn't retire the runner, then you call them out. You call time, and you call the batter out, and none of the other stuff matters, even though it did happen, but it doesn't really matter. So.
Okay.
And if it's strike 3 on the batter, then that runner's out. There's an exception, I believe, where like that runner is standing on second base and somebody throws, right? Where there's an exception where you don't have to call the runner out, but in, let's say, 99% of the time, you're going to call that runner out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Right. Yeah. If the throw retires a runner, so Ken, your question, if the initial throw retires the runner, then the interference on the batter is ignored.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so did I understand if it was strike 3 on the batter, then you can call the runner out as well?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
you will call the runner. So in this play, you call him out. The only exception is if there was no chance of retiring the runner. I think there's an exception in the rule.
It's a judgment call.
Yeah. And your judgment should be get another out. Unless it's a third world play where, like, I want to get too deep in the weeds and I would just get an out on, get the second out on it. Unless that runner is 2 feet off the base when the throw happens, right? There's no chance that catcher was even going to have a chance to retire the runner. Then you would leave him there. But if there's any chance at all that runner could have retired the catcher could have thrown out the runner, then you call the double play. There's a small window to not call him out, but I think the bigger window is to call him out. If that makes sense. And so yeah, the other part of it too is that you need a throw or an attempted throw. So if the catcher just catches the ball, the batter falls across the plate, and the catcher just stands there and doesn't do anything, then you don't have interference. If the catcher gets up to try to throw and stops because there's a batter standing in front of him, then you can get it. So you don't need a throw, but you need him to make an attempt to throw, even if the ball never leaves his hand.
I think I must have missed this when you mentioned it earlier. So let's just say there's a runner at third in this case, and he attempts to throw a bat pick and the interference is called, but then the runner at third tries to advance to home plate. He still goes back to third.
Yeah, all runners return to time to pitch. All right. All right, so that is it. So we're gonna go. So normally these will go like an hour and a half, and I'll stay as long as the discussion's going. But that's all the videos I have for tonight. If you see something out there,
That's the curtain me.
want us to discuss, send me the link and we'll talk about it. I try hardest and I spend way too much time on TikTok than I should, and trying to look at these videos and see things. But if you see something out there, shoot me an email and give it to me, and we can discuss this, or put the link in the chat and we can pull it up. I like to have them prepared ahead of time and kind of wrap my mind around it a little bit before we have the discussion. But if you see something out there, definitely send it and we can discuss it here. We're gonna try to do some interactive stuff. I didn't have time for tonight, but we'll do some rules quiz type stuff as well, and then try to give some prizes away as we go through these discussions too. So thanks guys for coming out. I will stay on until everybody jumps out if you have any questions, but thanks for coming out first night, and we will see you next Tuesday.